The Duke of Ashbourne was one sentence away from marrying a princess when a maid crossed the cathedral floor and slapped him in front of the entire kingdom. The sound cracked through the royal chapel like a gunshot. Every noble froze. The archbishop stopped breathing. The princess gasped behind her veil, and Duke Cassian Vale, the most powerful unmarried man in Eldermere, slowly turned his face back toward the trembling maid who had struck him. No one moved, no one dared, because this was not just any wedding. This was the wedding that would end a war. Princess Maribel of Ravencourt stood beside him in silver silk, her hand still resting near his. Their marriage would unite two rival kingdoms, silence old enemies, and secure Cassian's place as the most trusted man beside the throne. And now, a maid had ruined everything with one slap. Her name was Ilara Finch. At least, that was the name the palace knew. She wore a plain grey servant's dress. Her dark hair was pinned beneath a white cap. Her hands were rough from washing linens. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with something stronger than fear. Duke Cassian stared at her. "Do you understand what you have done?" he asked quietly. Ilara's chest rose and fell. "Yes." The princess stepped back, shocked. "Guards!" But Cassian lifted one hand. The guards stopped. That made the chapel even quieter. Cassian studied Ilara as though he was seeing her for the first time. "Why?" he asked. Ilara's lips trembled. Then she looked past him. Not at the princess, not at the king. At the small golden ring in Cassian's hand. The wedding ring. You cannot give her that," Ilara said. A murmur spread through the chapel. Princess Maribel's eyes sharpened. "And why not?" Ilara turned to her. "Because that ring belongs to a dead woman." The chapel erupted. The king stood from his throne. "Seize her!" This time, Cassian did not stop the guards. Two soldiers grabbed Ilara by the arms. She did not fight. She only looked at Cassian and said, "Ask him what happened at Blackmere Bridge." Cassian's face changed, only for a second. But everyone saw it. The old king saw it. The princess saw it. Even the archbishop saw it. Blackmere Bridge was not a name spoken at court, not after the accident, not after Lady Seraphina Vale, Cassian's first betrothed, had fallen into the river 3 years ago and disappeared beneath the black water. Cassian had mourned her in silence, or so the kingdom believed. Now, a maid had slapped him before his wedding and spoken the forbidden name. The princess pulled back her veil. "Cassian," she said, her voice low. "What is she talking about?" Cassian did not answer. Ilara was dragged toward the chapel doors. Then she shouted the words that shattered the wedding completely. "She did not fall!" Cassian turned. Ilara twisted against the guards. "She was pushed!" The doors slammed shut behind her, and with that, the kingdom's most important wedding died before the vows were finished. For several minutes, nobody spoke. The princess removed her hand from Cassian's arm. The king's face was dark with fury. The nobles stared like hungry wolves who had just smelled blood. Cassian looked at the ring in his palm. It was small, gold, simple, not a royal ring. Yeah, not the ring a duke should place on a princess's finger. He had told himself no one would notice, but Ilara had. Princess Maribel's voice cut through the silence. "Was she lying?" Cassian closed his hand around the ring. "Yes," he said, but his voice came too late. And too cold. The princess stepped away from him. "Then why are you shaking?" Cassian looked down. His hand was trembling. By evening, Ilara Finch was locked in the old stone guardroom beneath the palace. No servant came to comfort her. No friend came to ask why. No one wanted to be seen near the maid who had destroyed a royal wedding. She sat on a wooden bench, wrists bruised from the guards, staring at the small barred window above her. She had done it. She had slapped the Duke of Ashbourne. She had spoken Blackmere Bridge aloud. Now she would probably hang, but if she had stayed silent, something worse would have happened. Cassian Vale would have married a princess, and the truth would have been buried forever. Footsteps echoed outside. Ilara stood. The door opened. Duke Cassian entered alone. No guards, no princess, no king, only him. He had removed his wedding coat. His white shirt was open at the throat, his face pale with controlled anger. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he asked, "Who are you?" Ilara laughed once, bitterly. "Do you know my name?" "No," he said. "I know the name written in the servant registry. I am asking who you really are." Ilara lifted her chin. "A maid." "A maid does not know about Blackmere Bridge." "She does if she was there." Cassian's eyes darkened. "You were there?" "Yes." "That is impossible." "Many things are impossible until someone stops lying." He stepped closer. "Ilara Finch did not work in my household 3 years ago." "No?" "Then where were you?" She looked at him with a sadness that disturbed him more than her anger. "In the carriage behind yours." Cassian went still. The memory came back like a blade. Rain, thunder, Seraphina laughing softly beside him because she had never feared storms. The carriage lanterns swinging, a horse screaming, a wheel cracking, the bridge rail breaking, then water, black water, cold water, his own blood in his eyes, and when he woke, Seraphina was gone. At least, that was the memory everyone had given him. Ilara watched his face carefully. "You do not remember it clearly, do you?" Cassian's voice turned dangerous. "I be careful." "No, you be careful, Your Grace, because someone has built your life on a false memory." He grabbed the iron bars beside the door. "Say her name." Ilara swallowed. "Lady Seraphina." The name changed the room. Cassian looked away, as if the walls themselves had heard too much. "Do not speak of her like you knew her." "I did know her. You were a servant." "I was her servant." Cassian turned back slowly. Ilara reached into the hem of her dress and pulled out a small piece of folded blue ribbon. Cassian stared at it. Seraphina's ribbon. She had worn blue ribbons in her hair every day because her mother once told her blue made her look less sad. His voice dropped. "Where did you get that?" "She gave it to me the night before she died." "Why?" Ilara's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. Because she knew someone wanted her gone." Cassian's face hardened. "No." "Yes?" "No," he repeated, harsher this time. "Seraphina's death was an accident." "Then why did the royal physician lie?" The question struck him silent. Ilara continued. "Why did the bridge guard disappear the next morning? Why was the broken carriage burned before anyone inspected it? Why did your father pay 6 men to leave the country?" Cassian stepped back. "How do you know this?" "Because Lady Seraphina wrote everything down." Cassian's breath caught. "She left a letter?" Ilara shook her head. "A diary." The word entered the room like a match falling into oil. Cassian moved closer. "Where is it?" Ilara stared at him. "Safe." "Give it to me." "No." "I can have you executed." "You can. But then you will never know why she died." Cassian's jaw tightened. He looked like a man fighting 2 wars inside himself. One war was anger. The other was fear. Because if Ilara was telling the truth, then Seraphina had not died by accident. And if she had not died by accident, then Cassian had spent 3 years standing beside the people who killed her. He asked quietly, "Why slap me?" Ilara's voice broke for the first time. "Because you were about to place her ring on another woman's hand." Cassian opened his fist. The gold ring lay against his palm. He had carried it for 3 years. He did not know why he brought it to the wedding. Maybe guilt, maybe grief. Maybe some part of him had known this marriage was wrong. Ilara looked at the ring. "She gave you that when you promised to return for her." Cassian closed his eyes. That memory was real. A moonlit garden. Seraphina smiling through tears, her small hand pressing the ring into his palm. "When the court tries to separate us," she had whispered, "remember me before you remember your title." Cassian opened his eyes. His voice was barely a whisper. "What does the diary say?" Ilara stepped closer to the bars between them. "It says your marriage to Princess Maribel was planned before Seraphina died." Cassian froze. "That cannot be true." "It says the alliance with Ravencourt needed Seraphina removed." His face went white. "And it names the person who ordered it." Before Ilara could say more, screams erupted above them. Cassian turned toward the door. The palace bells began to ring. Not wedding bells. Alarm bells. A guard ran down the steps and shouted, "Your Grace! Princess Maribel has been attacked!" Cassian looked back at Ilara, her face filled with horror. The guard gasped, "And they found your maid's ribbon in the princess's hand." Cassian's blood went cold. Ilara whispered, "They are framing me." Cassian stared at her for 1 second. Then he did something that would destroy what remained of his reputation. He unlocked her cell. Ilara stared at the open cell door. Duke Cassian held the key in his hand, his expression carved from tension. "Move," he said. Ilara did not step forward. "You believe me?" "No." "Then why are you freeing me?" "Because if you are lying, I need you alive long enough to prove it. And if you are telling the truth..." He stopped. Ilara finished softly. "Then the person who killed Seraphina just attacked the princess." Cassian said nothing, but silence was answer enough. They ran through the servants' corridor beneath the palace, avoiding the main staircases where guards were already searching for the escaped maid. Above them, the palace shook with panic. A royal wedding ruined, a princess attacked, a maid missing from her cell, and the Duke of Ashbourne nowhere to be found. Ilara lifted her skirt to run faster. "Where are we going? To Princess Maribel? That is where every guard will be." "Exactly? That is a terrible plan." "It is not a plan. It is an interruption." They reached a hidden door behind the royal infirmary. Cassian pushed it open slightly. Inside, Princess Maribel lay on a couch, one hand bandaged. Her wedding veil discarded on the floor like a dead swan. The king stood near her. So did Lord Vale, Cassian's father. Ilara felt Cassian stop breathing beside her. Lord Edmund Vale was a tall, silver-haired man with a gentle voice and eyes that measured every person like property. He had been the one who announced Seraphina's death 3 years ago. He had been the one who told the court Cassian needed time to recover. And he had been the one who arranged Cassian's marriage to Princess Maribel. The king spoke first. "This attack has made everything worse." Lord Vale bowed his head. "The maid acted alone." Princess Maribel's eyes narrowed. "Did she?" Lord Vale looked at her. "Your Highness?" Maribel sat up slowly. "The girl slapped Cassian in front of the kingdom. Then I am attacked moments after demanding answers. That does not feel like a servant's madness. It feels like a warning." Lord Vale smiled softly. Fear can make patterns where none exist. Ilara's hand tightened. That smile. She remembered that smile from Seraphina's final week. Kind, polished, false. Cassian pushed open the hidden door and entered. Everyone turned. Ilara followed him. The king shouted, "Seize her!" Cassian stepped in front of Ilara. "No one touches her!" Lord Vale's face barely changed, but Ilara saw it. A flash of irritation, not surprise. He had expected this. Princess Maribel looked from Cassian to Ilara. "Interesting," she said. The king's voice thundered. "Cassian, explain yourself!" Cassian looked at the princess. "Who attacked you?" Maribel lifted her chin. I did not see his face. "His?" Lord Vale said quickly. Your Highness was frightened. She may be mistaken. Maribel's eyes sharpened. "I said his." The room chilled. Cassian stepped closer. "What did he want?" Maribel looked at Ilara. "He told me to stop asking about Blackmere Bridge." Ilara's heart jumped. Cassian turned to his father. Lord Vale spread his hands. Clearly the maid has infected the princess with her lies. Ilara could not stay silent. Lady Seraphina was murdered. The king stared. Princess Maribel whispered, "I knew it." Cassian looked at her. "You knew?" Maribel's face hardened. "I suspected. That is why I agreed to the wedding." Everyone froze. Cassian's voice turned cold. "You agreed to marry me because you suspected my first betrothed was murdered." "No," Maribel said. I agreed because I suspected my father helped cover it up." The king staggered back as if struck. Lord Vale's polite mask tightened. Princess Maribel continued. 3 years ago, Ravencourt was losing the border war. Eldamere would never accept an alliance while you were betrothed to Lady Seraphina. She was loved by the people. Her family opposed the treaty. Her death changed everything. Cassian's voice was rough. "So you came here to investigate?" "I came here because every letter I sent asking about Blackmere Bridge was intercepted, and because your father pushed too hard for the marriage." Lord Vale let out a soft laugh. "My son, you see what grief has done. A maid, a princess, and a dead girl's shadow now stand together against your own blood." Ilara stepped forward. "No, not shadow." She reached into her bodice and pulled out a small page wrapped in cloth. Cassian stared at it. "You said the diary was safe." "It is. This is only one page." Lord Vale's face changed. This time everyone saw it. Ilara opened the page. "It is Seraphina's handwriting." Cassian took it with shaking hands. He read silently, then aloud. "If I am found dead before the wedding contract is broken, do not believe the bridge. Lord Vale has warned me that love is not allowed to stand in the way of kingdoms. He said Cassian would forgive him once he wore a crown." Cassian's voice broke on the last word. "Crown, not title, not estate. Crown." Princess Maribel stood. The marriage was never about peace. Cassian looked at his father. "You wanted me near the throne." Lord Vale's smile disappeared. "You were born for power. I was born your son, and I tried to make that mean something. You killed Seraphina. I saved you from wasting your life on a girl who would have made you weak." Cassian moved so fast the guards reached for their swords. He grabbed his father by the collar and drove him against the wall. "Say her name with respect." Lord Vale smiled into his son's fury. "There he is, the Duke I raised." Ilara stepped close. "Cassian, not here, not like this." He looked at her. Her voice lowered. "If you strike him now, he wins." For a second, Cassian looked like he might not hear her. Then he released his father. Lord Vale adjusted his coat. The king turned to the guards. "Arrest Lord Vale." But Lord Vale only smiled again. That would be unwise. The king's eyes narrowed. Why? Lord Vale looked at Princess Maribel. Because if I am arrested, proof of Ravencourt's role in Seraphina's death reaches every noble house by morning. Your father's throne will collapse, the alliance will die, war will return. Princess Maribel went pale. Lord Vale turned back to Cassian. And if my son protects the maid, she will hang for attacking a princess. The evidence has already been placed. Ilara's breath caught. Cassian whispered, "You framed her." I prepared for complications. The king looked trapped. Maribel looked furious. Cassian looked like a man realizing his entire life had been designed by someone else. Lord Vale walked toward the door. "No one leaves," the king ordered. Lord Vale paused. Then shouting erupted outside. A guard rushed in. "Your Majesty, fire in the West Wing!" Lord Vale smiled. There it was. His escape. Chaos. Cassian moved, but Lord Vale's men stormed the infirmary door. Steel flashed. Princess Maribel grabbed a surgical blade from the table and cut the rope tying the window latch. "Ilara!" she shouted. "This way!" Ilara hesitated. Cassian was fighting near the door. "Go!" Cassian roared. Ilara and Maribel escaped through the window onto a narrow balcony while smoke filled the hall behind them. They climbed down a servant ladder into the garden. Maribel was still in her wedding gown, running barefoot across frozen grass. Ilara said, "Your Highness, this is not very royal." Maribel snapped, "Neither is being nearly murdered at one's wedding." They reached the old fountain before stopping. Ilara looked back. The palace burned in one wing. Cassian was nowhere in sight. Maribel gripped her wrist. "Where is the diary?" Ilara froze. The princess's tone had changed. Soft. Too soft. Ilara slowly turned. Princess Maribel was no longer frightened. She was watching Ilara carefully. "Your Highness?" Maribel's eyes were cold. "My father did help cover Seraphina's death," she said, "but he was not the one who ordered it." Ilara stepped back. Maribel smiled sadly. "I really hoped you would tell Cassian everything before I had to." A man emerged from behind the hedges, then another. Ravencourt soldiers. Ilara's blood turned cold. Maribel held out her hand. "The diary, Miss Finch." Ilara whispered, "You attacked yourself." Maribel's smile vanished. "I did what was necessary to stop a war." "And Seraphina?" "She was necessary too." Before Ilara could run, the soldiers seized her. Mud across the garden, through smoke and firelight, Cassian appeared at the balcony above. "Ilara!" she struggled, but it was too late. Princess Maribel looked up at him, her white gown glowing like a ghost's in the flames. Then she said the words that destroyed him. "Choose, Duke, the maid or the kingdom." And Ilara was dragged into the dark. Ilara woke inside a moving carriage with her hands tied. Her head ached. Her mouth tasted like smoke. Across from her sat Princess Maribel, still wearing the torn remains of her wedding gown. The silver silk was stained with ash, but her posture remained perfect, like a princess, like a lyre. Ilara stared at her. "You let everyone believe you were innocent." Maribel looked out the window. See, innocence is a luxury for people without kingdoms. "You murdered Seraphina." "I did not touch her." "But you ordered it." Maribel's silence answered. Ilara's throat tightened. She was kind. She was inconvenient. She was loved. That made her more dangerous. Ilara pulled against the ropes. "Cassian will come." Maribel looked at her then. "Of course he will. That is why you are still alive." The carriage stopped at the ruined chapel of Blackmere Bridge. Ilara's breath caught. This was where Seraphina had died. The river below roared in the darkness. Maribel's soldiers dragged Ilara from the carriage and brought her beneath the broken stone arch near the bridge. There, waiting in the cold, stood Lord Vale. Ilara's eyes widened. "You—" Lord Vale bowed slightly. "Miss Finch." Maribel stepped beside him. "You two planned this together." Lord Vale smiled. "Not together, temporarily aligned." Ilara looked between them. Lord Vale had wanted Cassian married to Maribel for power. Maribel had wanted Seraphina gone for political peace. Both had needed the same woman dead, and both had used Cassian's grief as a ladder. Lord Vale turned toward the bridge. "My son will arrive soon." Maribel's voice was calm. "He will bring the diary." Ilara forced herself not to react. They thought Cassian had it. Good, because the real diary was not with him. It was hidden where no noble would ever look, inside the torn mattress of Ilara's servant bed. Seraphina had trusted a maid because everyone important ignored servants. That had been her genius, and now it might save them all. Hoofbeats sounded. Cassian arrived alone. His coat was burned at one sleeve. Blood marked his temple, but his eyes were fixed on Ilara. "Ilara," Lord Vale stepped forward. "The diary." Cassian held up a leather book. Ilara's heart stopped. No. How had he found it? Then she saw his eyes, calm, too calm. It was not the diary, it was a decoy. Lord Vale reached for it. Cassian pulled it back. "Release her first." Maribel laughed softly. "You are still trying to be honourable, even now." Cassian looked at her. "You were going to marry me while hiding Seraphina's murder. I was going to protect 2 kingdoms from war." "You do not protect kingdoms by killing innocent women." "No," Maribel said coldly. "Men like your father create wars. Women like me clean them up." Ilara looked at the princess and saw something frightening. Maribel did not think herself evil. She thought herself practical. That made her worse. Lord Vale grew impatient. "Enough! Give me the diary." Cassian threw it at his feet. Lord Vale opened it quickly. His face twisted. Blank pages. Maribel's eyes flashed. "You brought a fake." Cassian drew his sword. "And you brought confessions." From the darkness behind the broken chapel, torches appeared. The king stepped out. Beside him stood Princess Maribel's father, the King of Ravencourt, pale with horror. And behind them, palace guards surrounded the ruins. Maribel froze. Lord Vale looked at Cassian with true shock. Cassian said quietly, "You taught me politics, father. You should have taught me mercy too. Then I might have warned you. I was learning strategy from someone better." Ilara looked past him. From behind the king emerged a small palace maid carrying a bundle wrapped in linen. Ilara's breath caught. Her friend Maisie, the one person she had trusted. Maisie held up the real diary, Seraphina's diary. Princess Maribel went white. The king opened it. His voice carried through the ruined chapel. Lady Seraphina wrote that Lord Vale threatened her, that Ravencourt envoys followed her, that Princess Maribel visited her in secret 2 days before her death. Maribel lifted her chin, but her face had lost colour. Her father stepped towards her. "Maribel, tell me this is false." For the first time, the princess looked young, almost frightened. "I did it for Ravencourt." Her father whispered, "You murdered peace before it was born." Maribel's voice cracked. "I saved us." "No," Ilara said. Everyone turned. Ilara stepped forward, ropes still around her wrists. "You saved your throne, not your people. Seraphina was not a treaty. She was not a problem. She was a woman who trusted the wrong people. Cassian crossed to Ilara and cut her ropes. Their eyes met. No grand confession passed between them. Not yet. But something stronger than gratitude stood there. Trust. Lord Vale suddenly grabbed a soldier's dagger and lunged at Cassian. Ilara saw it first. Cassian! Cassian turned, but his father was too close. Then Lord Vale stopped. The King's Guard captain had struck the dagger from his hand. Lord Vale fell to his knees. For the first time in his life, he looked small. Cassian stood over him. Lord Vale spat. "You would throw away greatness for a maid?" Cassian looked at Ilara, then at the diary, then at the bridge where Seraphina had died. "No," he said, "I am throwing away the lie you called greatness." Lord Vale was dragged away. Princess Maribel did not fight when her father's guards took her, but as she passed Ilara, she stopped. "You think he will choose you now?" Ilara said nothing. Maribel smiled faintly. "Courts do not forgive maids who embarrass dukes." Cassian answered before Ilara could. "Then the court can learn manners." Maribel's smile disappeared. By dawn, the truth reached the capital. The royal wedding had not failed because of a mad maid. It had failed because a maid had been brave enough to strike a duke awake. Lord Vale confessed after his private letters were found. Princess Maribel was returned to Ravencourt to face trial before her own court. The alliance survived, but not through marriage. It survived through truth. Weeks passed. The palace changed, not loudly, quietly. Servants were no longer invisible in the same way. Whispers followed Ilara everywhere, but so did respect. Some called her foolish. Some called her dangerous. Some called her the slap that saved the kingdom. Cassian did not ask her to marry him. Not immediately. That would have turned her courage into another court story. Instead, he did something far more shocking. He gave up his place in the royal succession. Then he stood before the king and asked that Seraphina's death be recorded not as an accident, but as murder. Her name was cleared, her family restored, her grave finally marked. On the day of the memorial, Ilara stood at the back of the chapel in a simple black dress. Cassian found her there. "What, you always stand at the back?" he said. "I am used to it." "You should not be." She looked at him. He held something out, the small gold ring, Seraphina's ring. Ilara stepped back. "That is not mine." "No," Cassian said softly. "It is not mine either, not anymore." Together they walked to the memorial and placed the ring beside Seraphina's name. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Cassian said, "When you slapped me, I hated you." Ilara almost smiled. "I noticed. I thought you'd ruined my life." "I did." He looked at her. She added, "But only the false part." Cassian laughed quietly, the sound unfamiliar even to him. Then his face grew serious. "You asked me once why I was shaking." "Yes." "Because some part of me knew I was about to betray a woman I had never stopped mourning." Ilara's eyes softened. "And now?" "Now I am finished letting dead people carry truths the living are too afraid to speak." Outside, the bells began to ring. Not for a wedding, not for war, for justice. Cassian turned toward the sound. "Ilara Finch," he said, "what do you want?" She looked at the palace, at the servants watching from side doors, at the nobles pretending not to listen, at the duke who had once stood one sentence away from marrying a princess until a maid's hand changed the future. "I want a life where no one has to slap a powerful man just to make him hear the truth." Cassian nodded. "Then let us build that." Months later, people still told the story. They told it in taverns, kitchens, markets, and noble drawing rooms. Some versions made Ilara fearless. She was not. Some made Cassian noble from the start. He was not. Some made Princess Maribel a monster. The truth was worse. She had been human enough to justify evil, but every version agreed on one thing. The wedding of the century ended with one slap. And that slap uncovered a murder, broke a conspiracy, humbled a duke, exposed a princess, and saved a kingdom from being built on a grave. As for Ilara, she remained in the palace, not as a maid, not as a duchess, not yet. She became the first royal witness keeper, the woman responsible for hearing the stories powerful people wanted buried. And on her office door, she placed a small sign that made every noble nervous. Speak the truth softly. Or Ilara Finch may make it louder.